Hello, and welcome back to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by Korey Karbowsky, one of my amazing and talented co-hosts that we don't have money to pay for, but it is what it is. And then we'll be joining us here in a little bit to join in on our I'm trying to think of the best word to describe this past week. Debauchery, maybe. I don't know. But let's get started off there. I'm actually a little mad at you, Korey. Can you guess why?
Because this is what I predicted, or
No, you guys let me ramble on about how Pittsburgh's going to come out and blow up and look really
uh,
good. And that's
you
exactly what
were
didn't happen.
you were right about Jerry Judy and James Winston at least, so that's a win.
I was. I'll give us that, I guess, or give myself that. But boy, what a disappointing game. Just from a multitude of levels. Multitude of levels. The guy we neglected to really talk a whole lot about last week, Myles Garrett, showed up in a huge way in the first half and made it feel like the game was over already to a degree. He had 3 sacks in the first half, just absolutely ridiculous how piss poor our pass pro was. Uh, and yeah, just bad all around there. Um, and then for me, it was coaching the rest of the way, got in the big way. So that, I was really hoping we'd avoid one of those Mike Tomlin trap games, and boy, we fell right into it. Mike Tomlin now is 0-8 on Thursday Night Football when concerning a divisional opponent. He's never won once, so won't be taking that trend again, or picking against that statistic the next time that happens. But very disappointing. Play calling was absolutely atrocious at times. I don't know what the thought was because it wasn't like the weather had gotten bad yet either, in the first half. We once again thought it was a smart idea to run into the teeth of the Browns defense, running right up the middle. I feel like
Mm.
I've said that before. Um, so on fourth and short, and the several times we did go for it, and just I'll tell you what, when the best play that we can come up with for a 2-point conversion is a fade to our third string running back that used to be a wide receiver. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, we have really stooped pretty low. And then the piss poor clock management for Mike Tomlin at the end of the game was absolutely laughable. On that, it was on that third down play. It was 3rd and 2. They had an illegal touching of the ball by the offensive lineman for the Browns, and he elected to keep it going 3rd down and 7 by taking that penalty when everyone in America knows you make that 4th and 2, decline the penalty to potentially get them off the field. I couldn't believe that he went back on that after declining it the first time and then accepting it again. Like even the referee was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we'll take the penalty." But that only ultimately doomed us because then they were able to waste 40 more seconds on the clock from on plays, and then we let Chubb score anyway. So just a total clusterfuck. Excuse my French, but just the piss poor game management is unreal from a guy who's in his 18th year in the league. I was quite furious on Thursday night after this game. But well, what are your thoughts about this game?
I I hate being right because this was almost the exact. Now I didn't expect it to snow as much as it did,
Yeah,
which threw a whole nother wrench into it. But I mean, this is what I was afraid of, where it was just bad clock management, just coming out flat. I mean, we could Warren starting to maybe take the reins again in the rushing game. Najee averaged 2.6 yards a carry, which is just atrocious for
yeah,
6 carry. Like that's just bad. Now, granted, the O line was not, you know,
yeah. They were horrible.
even hold either, but yeah, it's this was kind of the game I hoped I didn't see. I was bold enough to predict it. but just a nasty game where you hope that they take the long week and recover and bounce back from it, because this is just such a mess of a game that you really just hope to put this one behind you and move on.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, I mentioned play calling on the fourth downs or wherever, where it's like we gave them multiple opportunities on the plus side of the field. That didn't make sense to me. But the other thing that didn't make sense is all of a sudden the offense rattled off like 14 easy points, late in the fourth quarter when we absolutely needed points. We found a way to actually move the ball. And it's like, boy, it'd be really nice to adopt this mentality, like, I don't know, maybe earlier in the football game. It's like, why do we always wait until we absolutely have to have it? Like before we say, screw our offensive game plan, let's just go out there and try to put up points. It's
Mhm.
it's baffling. It's everything that's wrong with Mike Tomlin. And Steeler Fury fans, you've heard this countless times from this trio that hosts this show about how archaic our style of offense is and how we want to win close ball games and stuff. And it just astounds me every time when it comes back and rears its ugly head. We'll have great games where, like 2 weeks ago, we play the Baltimore Ravens, we play extremely good defense, we miss opportunities on offense, and that's completely different than what I'm talking about, because at least there were opportunities. And in a game like this against the Browns up in Cleveland, we waited until we absolutely had to have it to try to turn on the offense. It's not like, we had real troubles moving the ball until we absolutely had to have it. So I don't get it. I don't think we're ever going to get it. And unfortunately, Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere with that 3-year extension unless he really wants to retire sometime soon, which I don't know why you would when you're getting paid what he gets paid to do what he does, and the free reigns he has to do whatever the hell he wants. So
I remember I remember seeing this exact scenario where we're like, oh, we lose, then we're here talking about how we hate Mike Tomlin and all this stuff. And it's validated. I've been iffy all year. It's not like I'm until we do something in the playoffs, I'm with you. But it's funny how, a couple weeks where we pull some wins out, then you just see all the bad come raining down again, and you're like, well, this is how we won a playoff game in how many years?
yeah, almost 10. I think almost 10 years since a playoff win, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Considering that this is, one of the flagship franchises in the NFL, model of stability and all of that. And it's like, we haven't won anything that's mattered in a long time. At least by our standards, the standard is the standard and all that jibber jabber that Mike Tomlin likes to throw out there.
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you another thing that really got me was, I didn't mind the use of Justin Fields occasionally, but having him throw a deep ball in like 3rd and 4 was just like the final straw. Where it's like, oh my God, we have no clue what we are doing when it comes to offense. Like, I don't mind a package for Fields because he is good. He's a good football player. And shoot, honestly, he almost had a touchdown if that one guy doesn't catch him on the sideline on his, you kind of read run to the right side of the field there. But man, oh, I don't know how many times I have to just go back to this game and think, oh my God, did that really just happen? So let's move on. I hate to dwell on the negative too much, but it just felt like there was so much, like you said, Korey, when it rains, it pours. And when it happens for the Steelers, it's never a drizzle. It's a hurricane. It's like, that's what we got hit with, except it was freezing in Cleveland. So it was snowing.
It's a lose to a 2-8 divisional rival when you have a chance to separate in the division. That's what it is.
Right. And this is eerily like the Cardinals game from last year, where we look like we're the much superior team, travel on the road and get beat by a 2-8 ball club. Just absolutely ridiculous at the end of the day. But
Mhm.
anyway, another week. It's hard to believe, actually. We're in week 13 of the NFL season. It's only 6 more weeks of regular season football out there, Steeler fans. It's crazy how fast the season really goes. Well, 1 minute you're trying to figure out whether Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is going to be your quarterback, and the next thing you know, you only have 6 weeks left to try to win the AFC North and secure a playoff spot, which is getting more and more interesting, considering Baltimore pulled out a close game on Monday Night Football this week against the Chargers. So it's going to be a highly contested division all the way to the finish. So luckily, it's only between us and Baltimore. Cincinnati continues to distance themselves, and they happen to be the team we play this week. We're instead of going up the Pennsylvania Turnpike, we're going across Ohio to go visit the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Let's dive into some matchups that we think we're going to have to really kind of pay attention to for a struggling, Bengals team. But, we said that about the Browns too, a struggling Browns team. So nothing's a given in the league.
Nope.
Paid professionals. So, Korey, what's a matchup you are a little concerned about this week?
Whew.
Highlight. Let's put it that way. Let's try to stay more positive right now.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that's pretty scary. I feel like that's why it was so important to kind of pull this Browns game out, because even though they are 4-7, they are almost as dangerous as it comes offensively as any team in the league right now. I feel like this just has to start with the two receivers, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, who should both be playing this week. I don't think there's any tag on either of them.
I don't think so.
T. Higgins, I feel like, has notoriously given us some problems. He's coming off a huge week. Obviously, Jamar Chase is one of the elite talents in the NFL. And if there's two guys who can stress this defense, it's going to be those two. That's one of the top, if not the top, wide receiver pairing in the league. The Bengals are not afraid to empty the clip. They threw the ball 50 times last week. They threw the ball 40-something times, I'm pretty sure, the week before. If we're not on our P's and Q's in the back end, or if we just have guys who can't step up and guard, that's where we're going to get targeted. And I think that's going to be the story of the game. In all honesty, I think if we can keep those two in check, we'll be fine. But that's a tall task.
Absolutely. And, these are the types of guys that give Joey Porter Jr. issues because, we knew Joey Porter Jr. was, a physical man corner. And we knew coming out of college, he was a little handsy. That has not changed a whole lot in the NFL. He is still pretty handsy. And these are two receivers that are very quick. So he is going to have his hands full no matter, him and Dante Jackson are going to have their hands full against these two because they are, like you said, probably the best 1-2 punch at receiver in the league. So not to mention, Joe Burrow is playing fantastic football right now. Kind of keep it on the offense here, Cincinnati. I do think one matchup that I think we could excel in is I think our pass rush could be a big difference this week. Cincinnati's offensive line is not good by any means. The reasons they are in game is because Joe Burrow is pulling off the Las Vegas magic act every single week. He's behind a tattered curtain and getting balls off, to say the least. Like he's trying to pull the rabbit out of the hat every time he takes a snap, it feels like. So I do feel like we're going to have an opportunity to get after him. Mike Tomlin noted earlier today that Alex Highsmith could be back this week, depending on what his participation rate is in practice. So it'll be something to look at. But, honestly, Nick Herbig has been playing so well. I don't really know if there's much of a need to rush him back. I would just sit him personally. Not to mention Preston Smith has been done a pretty admirable job in his role of playing backup and rushing out of our nickel package, as a down kind of defensive tackle look. This could be the week TJ Watt gets back on the sack train. if they don't chip him with 3 offensive players every time. That's just the type of presence he commands week in, week out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one thing I do think we can do is get after Joe Burrow a little bit. So if we can get after him, I think the wide receivers won't quite have as much time as they've had, it seems like, the past 2 or 3 weeks to get open and run their routes. So hopefully with a better pass rush, we can kind of hope to negate that a little bit. Any other matchups you think we should highlight here, buddy? Or players that we need to be at least have an eye on?
I think Cam Taylor-Britt's one of those guys who I feel like when he's played Pickens in the past, I feel like that's been one of the better guys in keeping him a little quieter. I recall now, granted, I only judge so much when it's Kenny Pickett throwing him the ball, but
Boy, I forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, but that's I feel like he had some success in the past, so I think that I think that's one to watch. I was really high on him coming out. Mike, it's a young secondary. They've got him. They've got Josh Newton. They've got
Yep.
Jordan Beck floating around in the back end. So that's just gonna be something to keep an eye on. I feel like we've in the past highlighted their linebacker matchups, and it's hasn't played a huge factor in the past. So I'm not gonna say Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt this time, but that's I think Cam Taylor-Britt. I feel like he had some success last time, so that's going to be something just to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Pickett or if it's more Cam Taylor-Britt.
Right. I would say there could be an interesting matchup to watch this week, and it's because he's had a history of playing pretty good against these guys. It could be the week that Pat Fryermuth gets a little bit more involved in the offensive game plan. He had a big first game against them last year, I want to say. Yeah, and then in the second game, they kind of did everything they could to make sure he wasn't the reason they, won or lost that game. But he looked a little bit more involved this past week against Cleveland. Like he got a little bit higher percentage of the targets. So Pat Fryermuth could be a little bit of an X factor this week.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably offensively for the Bengals, I'll say Chase Brown has been a nice little surprise for them. He has been a very good do-it-all round back. So his ability to both contribute in the run game and the pass game, our linebackers are going to have to be on the top of their game, whether he's coming down in a running lane or out in the flat, and just in general, he has been a nice little safety valve for Joe Burrow. So I would expect him to be decently involved again. Ever since Zach Moss has went down with injury, he's been their lead back. Khalil Herbert, he's contributed minimally at this point since he was traded from the Bears. So expect a lot of Chase Brown, and he's been pretty efficient with his touches too. So just another guy to be on the lookout for.
Yep.
One more guy offensively, Mike Gesicki. When he gets involved, the Bengals tend to do pretty well. And he's one of these mismatched tight ends that it seems like we've always had a little bit of an issue with covering. So Deshaun Elliott, Peyton Wilson, Patrick Queen to a degree, even though we don't really like him a whole lot in coverage. Those guys are going to have to be on top of their game too. So just one more guy to be on the lookout for. Anyone else you can kind of think of?
No, I think that's a good point because I forgot that was the Bengals. It was Pirine who had like 12 catches for like 100-something yards on us coming out the backfield. So that's a good point. I didn't think of that one.
Yeah, just unfortunately, this is the type of offense we don't really want to see right now because even defensively, Trey Hendrickson could give Dan Moore quite a day. He's still one of the better pass rushers in the league, and Dan Moore had a horrible game against Myles Garrett. So that man's coming off, was walking wounded at the end of that one. You hope Mike Tomlin kind of called them all out and they kind of fall back on their pride this week, kind of more rise to the occasion, so to say. But so I was reading something else today, and I wanted to bring this up. Did you know that there is a current Steelers coach that might be in contention for a head coaching job?
Who? Oh, I think Will's here, and
Oh,
so
yep. I'm gonna let
I
Will
feel
join in
like
here.
this could be a good one for Will as well.
Right. But currently Arthur Smith is on the short list of names for the North Carolina head coaching job. Uh, it'd be kind of nice to get rid of him because we've kind of lamented his hiring here
Uh huh.
the last few weeks. At first it sounded good, but it's kind of fallen back down to earth a little bit,
Yeah.
from our expectations. With Justin Fields at quarterback, it seemed like the offense was moving in the right direction. And Russell Wilson definitely, does more with the offense now. Don't get me wrong. But after kind of seeing some of these last few games, it wouldn't disappoint me to, you know, let Arthur Smith go on to his next career and passion. So, and now Will's here. Hey, Will, how's it going?
Hey, oh, you dude started without me. I'm disappointed I didn't get to rant right from the get go.
Absolutely. Well, from the get go, but now the floor is yours, buddy. We want to give you an opportunity here to kind of give your thoughts on the Browns game. We're not too far past that.
Well, let's start with Arthur Smith. I sure hope he goes to North Carolina because I've been on this train for a couple of weeks now. I've seen enough. I mean,
Right.
I know that there's a directive from up on high. I get that, but it's very. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we watched Matt Canada's offense, and it was very unimaginative. And it feels like Arthur Smith offense is just a different flavor of unimaginative. Like, why must we settle for unimaginative football? It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. It's one thing if you really want to build your offense around Najee Harris because you feel like he's your star player, that he's Saquon Barkley and you don't have anything else when you're the New York Giants. Like, that's sort of what I feel like this offense is meant to do. And the rest of it is all like, you're not really building opportunities for people. And, you have an offensive coordinator, a head coach, and a quarterback who are all pretty much loath to throw balls over the middle of the field in the intermediate range. And, that just doesn't seem like a winning formula. Whatever. As far as last week's game is concerned, Korey nailed it in terms of what the expectations were. It was higher scoring than I thought it would be, but it's the same level of sort of, almost going through the motionness of it. And I'm particularly concerned. I mean, obviously everyone's talking about the offense, and the offense is not producing touchdowns or red zone play or whatever. And should we go back to Justin Fields and all that discussion? But to me, I really feel like the defense is playing like they're not getting the disruption that they were 3 weeks ago, a month ago, at the beginning of the season. That it seems to be there's a trend for the defense to be less dynamic and just playing it safer, sort of. And I don't want. Once again, I feel like that's a difficult way to win football games when your offense is not putting up 30 or 40 points a game. So that's my rant. I don't know how different that was than your rant, but seems
Sounds
like
pretty
probably.
similar. Yeah. Oh. We were lamenting the offensive play calling, loving running it into, the middle of the offensive line with, Najee Harris. That's worked so well in the past. And,
Yeah. Oh, that thing
Justin,
about running every first down run. I'm 61 years old. It's 30 years of this now for me. The first down running. It's like anybody who really knows the sport understands first down is the easiest down to pass on in the NFL. And it's like when you have a bad quarterback, teams they want to run it on first down. When you're trying to control the clock and save your defense, you run it on first down, etc. But it just makes it so much harder to move the ball and score points. And it's so frustrating to see that game after game after year, especially as I said last week, when they're playing an offense that they don't fear, then their offense, they play ultra conservative.
yeah, we were talking about the various offensive play calls that we didn't like. The 2-point conversion to Cordero Patterson was absolutely laughable. Just multiple things throughout the game that just seemed absolutely right on par with what you guys were saying. And I told Korey I was mad at you guys because you allowed me to go down this rabbit hole thinking we were going to come out of this Mike Tomlin crap fest or whatever. But
we made you think that we were the ones saying like, oh, look out for this Browns game, and you were like, no, I don't believe it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's like I reverted back to my naive self from like 10 years ago. Oh, the Steelers can do no wrong. Everything's golden around here,
It'd be nice to be 12 again.
Yeah. Well, not 12, boy. Now we're talking 2 decades. But yeah, so we would just we're kind of lamenting the performance. We highlighted some matchups kind of rather quickly. Be on the lookout for.
Did you talk about Trey Hendrickson?
Yeah, I kind of brought it up because Dan Moore had such a rough game.
Yeah, and I feel like Hendrickson, especially when you're playing in Cincinnati, if you get off the ball late, he's one of those cats that just lunch pail pass rusher. Sort of akin to like Alex Highsmith. I feel like you're just going to get it on every play, and if you slip up, you make one bad footwork, hand position, you do something slow off the snap, he's a guy that will make you pay. It's very rare that the opponent makes a mistake and he doesn't get some action out of it. So I worry about that matchup in this case, especially coming off the last game against Myles Garrett.
Yeah, absolutely, because we made Myles Garrett look like all Hall of Famer on already ready to be inducted, and he's still got plenty of years ahead of him to play. But one thing we didn't mention, and I kind of want to bring it up, I do expect Pittsburgh to try to really lean on the ground game this week because I almost said the Browns. The Bengals are not great against the run by any stretch of the means. That their defensive line is very average, honestly, outside of Trey Hendrickson. I was in Cincinnati this past weekend with family, and my brother-in-law was like, yeah, Sam Hubbard sucks. You should run at him all day. We're missing DJ Reader from, last year's thing. They're just not a good defense. So I expect Pittsburgh to try to come out and run the ball a lot, considering how the struggles we had in pass protection. I mean, we had struggles in pass protection across the board. Zach Frazier kind of had his first not great game as a Steeler. I won't go as far as to say bad, but it wasn't good. Up the middle, it felt like the Browns could do whatever they wanted to in that first half defensively. So it got better as the game went on. But I truly expect the Steelers to try to get back to more of a ground and pound game this week, which is funny because out of the first 11 games the Steelers have played, they're averaging 35 minutes of offense. So we're winning the time of possession battle. We're winning the turnover battle, but we're not putting up the points and we're not closing out, in some of these games like we could be. So 2 stats that we want to do well in, but we're not performing that great in this year.
Jeremy, Mike Tomlin walks to work every day, goes past 6 time of possession trophies, just so you know. And I think number 7 is on the way this year. It really feels like it.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wish there was as much emphasis put on scoring points, beating teams when they're down, putting games away, and the kinds of things that you do in postseason to win. Like if we had that same kind of emphasis that we have on, not having a losing season and next man up and all the other sort of like hyperbole, I feel like they'd really be something. But anyway, I gave Korey a chance to talk. I'm taking all of his oxygen for complaining.
Don't worry. I was just I got the gloat a little bit that this was what I predicted. And my weekly complaining about Najee. I feel like you have a better chance of going to almost any campus in the NCAA and finding a running back that might be better than him right now. And that's a testament to the talent of running backs in college football and more indicative of his play. But I'll just say this right now, since I'm, brought myself down there. If we don't take a back who runs under a 4.5 in this draft, and there will be a bunch of them, I'm going to be pretty upset because we should be able to get a one from the 3rd to the 6th round who should be a stud. And there's going to be some dudes undrafted that we're going to, like, us three are going to be like, wow, can't believe that.
Mhm.
And we just need to upgrade. If we're going to run the ball like this, if this is going to be the identity, you at least got to have a guy who can do it, especially on a rookie deal. So yeah, they got to address it.
Yeah, you need splash plays from the running back position. You need catch and runs that are more than 10 yards. You need every once in a while they can break one and hit a home run. That's the element that's really missing. If you're going to have so much emphasis on the run game, you got to have some dynamic runners and hopefully like a whole stable of them. That feels like the formula that works, unless you have Derrick Henry, and even then, they have a number 2 that's a terrific pass catcher and a good runner. So yeah, it's like Najee Harris is not. He wears the same number, and he looks he styled himself like Derrick Henry, kind of, right? He looks like he's emulating him to a degree, but he's not that player. He doesn't have that burst, and he's not, as elusive in the open field. Like you just need somebody who can do something more than get 4 or 5 yards on plays that are blocked for 4 or 5 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Explosiveness? What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, but I mean, and Jeremy, you're talking about you're going to lean on the run game a little bit because this team isn't good against run. First of all, they didn't lean on the pass when they played Baltimore, a team that can't really stop the pass.
Mm-hmm.
So, or at least has difficulty with that. So I doubt that they're going to change their game plan much because of the opponent, but that's what they want to do anyway. So, all of that running on first down that frustrated us so much, you're going to see more of that again. And to me, the problem is when you're facing an offense that can light you up, even when you're having a good day on defense, which, the Bengals quarterback and skill players on offense are as good as anybody has.
Yeah.
Right. So they're probably going to put up points. So if your formula is you're going to come out and run and try to grind it out, the problem with that is if you get behind, which you probably will, then you've got to abandon ship and shift your whole game plan, which, with the Steelers seem very slow to do in games.
Well, I brought that up because when the Browns scored to go up 18-12 or something like that, I can't remember what I think it was 18-12 or something like that. I literally told my brother-in-law, because we were sitting there in his basement watching, and I was like, Steelers aren't going to score the rest of it. And I was like, we're just not. But we abandoned the current game plan, and all of a sudden we went down the field and scored twice and went up, and it was just like, I don't understand why we are so late to think, oh, well, now we really need the points. So just let's go out there and try to play explosive football. It's like we don't do it until we absolutely need it by necessity. And it's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. Like, that's why I was so hoping that this offseason, when the offensive coordinator job was open, that we'd go after a Zach Robinson that came, from a dynamic offensive style like that of Sean McVay, of Matt LaFleur to a little degree, because, they all came from that McVay coaching tree. And it was just like, when we hired Arthur Smith, I was like, oh, that's just such a cop-out. It's like, oh, that's just a guy who needs a job. It's not who we really wanted, type of hire. So
on the contrary, I think that's the perfect offensive coordinator for Mike Tomlin. It just feels like he's, that's the guy. Now, for us or for winning or for other measurements, of course not. But I think they were probably thrilled to have that option because James Franklin wasn't available. Like it's just this idea of like the ultra conservative. We're going to run the daylights out of the ball and grind teams down in the fourth quarter. Like, that's like a wet dream for Mike Tomlin and for ownership, for that matter.
Yeah,
and for 60% of the fans, if not more.
Yeah, that's the other problem. But so I know you guys brought up, there's probably like a litany of backs that we would love from like rounds 3 to 6. Will you be pissed off if they end up taking one in round 1, if like Ashton Genty is just sitting there? Because like I kind of was thinking on Sunday, because I got to see some of the later games. I was doing some traveling on Sunday, and it's like, I don't know, if we had a Bijan like talent at running back, I wouldn't feel as bad about how this, offense might look, because all of a sudden we might have a really dynamic starting running back. Korey, I'll let you talk on that one first.
I, as crazy as it, like they're going to get paid as a first round running back. So that contract's going to be, you're going to be paying for those services. I think he'd be good. Yes. I could probably be talked into the pick, but I would rather go towards a more, like, you're not getting a left tackle. And that's just an example. You're not getting a left tackle in free agency. You're not getting a quarterback in free agency. I would rather it use towards one of those positions, at least as swinging the bat on one of them, like especially a quarterback. In all honesty, then I think as good of a player as Genty is, that's my view on it. That I could be talked into it because he's a good player, but I would rather see a swing for a more premium position.
Sure, I get that. Will.
I mean, if you're going to pick a running back early, first or second round, then it has to be somebody that's like an amazing third down running back that you can lean on in passing situations. It doesn't have to be taken out of the game plan when you get down a couple touchdowns or whatever, right? So that's the main requirement to even consider drafting a guy. So yeah, Genty, if you're picking, I don't think this is going to be the case with them, but let's say they're picking at 25 and Genty's on the board for the way they want to play offense. Maybe that's the guy they should pick because he certainly can do it all. But no, I agree with Korey. I just feel like your, first round picks should be stuff that's hard to acquire and players that aren't readily available, don't grow on trees, whether that's, bigger offensive defensive linemen that are hard to acquire in free agency, whether it's a quarterback or, even wide receivers in recent years have become difficult to get as free agents to come in and, be big difference makers without paying $40 million a year or whatever.
True.
So that's another position that they're weak at that would make some sense if they're available. So at any rate, I don't know what to make of the draft situation. We're more flaws and strengths are going to be revealed. Like there's still a lot to be revealed with this team. So I'm probably less convinced that anything they do in the draft will make a difference for them than I am. Usually I'm like, well, we're building something and then next year we're going to draft this and this and this and it's going to be better. I don't know. They seem to have drafted pretty well the last couple of years. They have the same team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, it's funny you say, you don't think a first round pick is going to come in and do much. If you look at this year, our first round pick got hurt. So he's de facto not doing anything. But I thought this might be a heck of a time because I think you're starting, now that we're in the later parts of the year, you're starting to see what teams are, losing coaches and potentially going to be losing coaches and so forth. I think this would be the year to maybe pull off that Minkah Fitzpatrick type of a trade and send that first rounder out there for, a big time proven player. And the player that I keep coming back to because he called out his team for being soft this week is Dexter Lawrence with the New York Giants. Now it might take more than a one, but to get a player like that on our defensive line, when you have an aging Cameron Hayward, who's just not the same player he used to be, the extension he got, Will, you brought up earlier in the season, is more de facto. He gets to stay around for as long as we want him. It wasn't any new money, anything like that. So it could be used to replace him or just, get a bona fide stud that we truly need at defensive tackle. Because can you imagine a line with Watt, Herbig, Highsmith, Lawrence, even a 50% Cameron Hayward, a Keanu Benton and whatnot. Honestly, I think Ogunjobi should be cut at the end of the year. He is providing absolutely nothing for his $11 million a year. That was a bad signing at the time. Didn't like it then, still don't like it now. We have not gotten our money's worth out of him. I'd much rather send a first round pick and maybe, a third or fourth the year after for a player like Dexter Lawrence, who can come in and play right away and really make, change his team around, even though that would keep, this trend of let's pay our defense an absurd amount of money and no one on offense. But, we're still young on offense.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. But I don't know. It just feels like this could be the year. Oh, it looks like we lost Will there for a second. I'll be on the lookout to get him back in. But I don't know, Korey. It just feels like it could be a year where it's like you use that first round pick to go grab a premium talent. It doesn't feel like we've been adverse to this type of thinking with the potential wide receiver trades that we've been looking at this whole offseason too. We all thought a first rounder was going to be too much for some of these guys, but a second and plus something might be something that we're willing to give up. So it's not like this team doesn't feel like it's close anyway. So why don't you go get a piece that actually really puts you closer compared to, like Will said, first rounder may not really contribute this year. Does anyone even come to mind to you when it's like, man, there'd be a player if I could really go get that might be available?
Ooh, that might be available. That's the one that throws it.
Yeah, I mean, you're going down a rabbit hole here. I gave you the hat, go as far as you wish, but
it's unlikely they'd trade him, but like a Jalen Waddle, if the Dolphins try to start diversifying out, because he hasn't really been used a ton this year. I think he just had a big week, but I think the last 2 years he hasn't really lived up to what people expected. In reality, we can do what we want, but we need to eventually get a quarterback, and we need to get one that wants to push the ball down the field, and a head coach who lets him push it down the field. So it's like with like a Waddle, it's kind of tough to like you'd love to have him, but is it gonna affect all that much? I think Dexter Lawrence is a guy that, I mean, that's what you were hoping with Tuitt when you signed him, and then you really didn't get anything after that. That's what you'd be hoping for. That's
Very
a good
true.
That's a good one. But is there some slot corner across the league that can really step in and play? Shout out Cooper DeJean for playing how he's played in Philly. We loved Mitchell and DeJean, and they're balling out over there in Philly. But just thought of that because slot corner came to mind. But yeah, that receiver would really be high on the list. But I acknowledge that we really need a franchise QB before we dive too deep into the weeds.
Yeah, I mean, I know all three of us were big Cam Ward fans. We all see and love what he brings to the table and all that. But like kind of like what Will's saying, and he's coming back here, Cedar Fury. He just texted. He's coming back in when he gets a chance here. If we don't change up what we do offensively, it's like we're going to need a young gunslinger to come in and kind of change Tomlin's mind about how this offense is played. Because right now, I definitely get the feel that Russell Wilson will be back. Like I'd be shocked if he's not. Russell Wilson has played pretty well, given what we have around him. So I'll just be shocked if he's not back. Will, welcome back. We were just talking about, how we're kind of all on the Cam Ward train, and we think it's going to take a young gun to kind of change Tomlin's mind. Like right now, he's just going and getting the pieces he wants rather than the pieces he needs. And a guy like Ward, who's got a very good live arm, he is coming from explosive offenses in college, first starting at Incarnate Word of all places, then Washington State for 2 years, now a year in Miami where, he's playing well for the most part. He's in the Heisman conversation, but it's like where we are going to have to go up and get a guy like that if we're going to change, or if the offense is going to move in a more.
Yeah, you'll have to do what Kansas City did, which is move up from 25 to 10 to get Patrick Mahomes. That's the move if a guy that you believe is Patrick Mahomes, lands there. But I don't see them doing that. I feel like they have gotten enough. I think Tomlin, I feel like, is so much more comfortable with not having to go through the learning curve of a young quarterback. And I think,
Mhm.
it's a challenge in a way to his control. And I feel like control for him appears to be pretty important.
Yeah.
So, they would, he inherited Ben Roethlisberger and the lack of control that came with having a guy like that, because, Ben is not only plays a little bit outside the box, but also had established himself already as a Super Bowl winner before Tolman got there. So, that level degree of tension, I'm not sure we'll ever see that again with Mike Tomlin. It would be like a matter of last resort. As long as they continue to be a competitive team that in-house they're convinced that they're a real contender, find it very difficult to believe that they're going to, go for a rookie quarterback that they expect to come in and start. So, your best case scenario would be maybe they draft somebody in the second or third round that overperforms and ends up being a big success story, or like a Brock Purdy. But hard to believe that really. I mean, I'm trying to let go of the dream, because I'm having little nightmares right now about Cam Ward ending up in Cleveland with Ben Johnson. Like that is completely within the realm of possibility right now. So I'm just sort of hopeful that something like that would be like the worst case scenario. But
Yeah. So
there's always Jalen Milroe. No, I'm joking. Jackson Dart.
hmm well, when we lost you, we were going on about, maybe using that first round pick for a player that actually does get you closer. Is there anyone that comes to mind? I mentioned Dexter Lawrence. Corey brought up Jalen Waddle in Miami, if they're looking for salary cap relief and all that
Sure.
into the future. Is there anyone that just kind of sticks out in your mind as a guy that you might think could become available this offseason, with, this being the time of year where you're starting to see teams, press the eject button and already start planning for next year?
Sure. I mean, I have a feeling if Cooper Kupp was available at the trading deadline at all, either you're considering it, he might be a guy that you could end up getting at the end of the season, which would be a pretty good compliment. I don't really understand why Cooper Kupp would want to come to Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
So, I mean, he's a great blocker and does well in a balanced offense and so on and so forth, but there doesn't really seem to be a lot of effort put into designing plays that make him open the way that he is now in LA. So
Mhm.
I think you'd have to overpay him to even get him to consider to come. Yeah, I feel like wide receiver is a spot, that would definitely help. Maybe left tackle is the spot that what they really need to solidify what they're doing, but I don't see that happening. And I doubt there's a quarterback on the market they're going to bring in who would be an upgrade from what Russell Wilson is doing now. But
Yeah.
He's going to be pretty expensive. Russell Wilson's going to be. I went through it all today. I outlined on the site comparables, and he's probably going to cost you $45 million, even if he signs a little bit of a hometown deal. So if he's getting $45 million a year, you're not unlimited in terms of all the spending and things that you can do. So yeah, trading a first round pick for a player, though, boy, that's like a Washington Redskins of the old times. That's like when you feel like you're really close, like you just lost the Super Bowl, like you're San Francisco, you can't get over the hump. I don't know for a team that is still lagging behind the top teams in the league to make a move like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a good point. It's just kind of thought about.
Sorry, I don't want to depress anybody.
Oh, no.
I'm just saying, it's like I don't know that they're that close. That trading a first round pick, even the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade, it certainly made them respectable, but I'm not sure that the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade moved the needle significantly on the team's chances of winning. Like I said, all the stuff that was added the last 2 years, and that really, in contrast, it feels like they didn't really lose anybody that you're like, wow, I really feel bad we lost this player. Added a lot of new faces that seem like they can play. And the results are remarkably similar to me.
Yeah, they definitely are. But either way, it's going to take, talent to kind of change the minds of what we do. And so just trying to find any avenue to get more of it.
It's transcendent talent. Like the thing you need is somebody that's so good that it doesn't matter what scheme they're playing in or who the quarterback is or who the coach is or whatever, that they're going to find a way to get opportunities and make the most of them. There's a handful of guys in the league. We might have trouble naming 15 of them, in the whole league right now.
Mhm.
So transcendent talents, yeah, that's the thing. But there's not many guys like that.
Well, and especially where we draft, we have to go up, trade up, and go get one. I mean, would you guys? I don't know where he's going to fall, but I'd expect probably a top 5 pick. I mean, I think I floated it early in the year when I wasn't really expecting us to go anywhere with this team. Trading up for a guy like Tet McMillan out of Arizona would really push the needle over the top.
Yeah.
I just don't know what you'd have to give up to get in the top 5. You're probably talking 2 first rounders and another second at a minimum.
I don't know. I don't know, Corey, are you getting the sense that I am that Tet McMillan is getting pushed down draft boards? Like, I wonder, in terms of the people who follow the draft, not teams, because we have no way of knowing what teams
Why
really
is
are into.
that?
But I just feel like there's just a lot of players, interior players, defensive players. There's just a lot of stuff that's sort of jumping up in front of Tet McMillan, even other receivers that people are more into. But I think he's an outlier receiver compared to the rest of the class. But I think I'm lonely in that position. I don't think there's that many people that think that's true.
I'm on that train. Just saying, I'm on that train.
What's funny is I think if Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith didn't exist, he would be higher up on the general NFL draft board. But I think it's easy to just be like, oh, look what's coming, and just forget about him. Luther Burden has his supporters. I think he's really good as well. But
yeah.
But he's a more stuck to the ground player. Like, nothing against that.
Yeah, he's like an
same with
type of player.
Yeah, same with what's the fast cat from Texas?
Isaiah Bond.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like they're players that can do a lot of stuff, but they're more playing with their speed and along the ground. They're not necessarily like McMillan is a guy that can beat you with speed and does all the George Pickens stuff at the at the top of the route. I mean, at the catch point, and he's big. He's got everything.
Right.
He's going to be one of the fastest. He's the biggest, and he's the best at the catch point. What's not to like? So,
right.
But yeah, I feel like the NFL as a league is a little bit more interested in the James Worthy types or the Worthy types than the AJ Brown and Mike Evans. Like, I feel like those guys have started to become devalued a little bit over the speed guys. It's a Tyreek Hill effect. Everybody wants a Tyreek Hill.
It's hard not to get enamored, with those guys because they are so fast and quick and can do so many different things. I mean, it's hard not to get enamored, but I mean, if you would be telling me, that Tet McMillan is going to be like a Mike Evans, I'd be like, yeah, let me go get the 10-time Pro Bowler who's had 1,000 yards every season and
right.
Like near double digit touchdowns or whatever. Because I'll be honest, the other thing that I'm, I think it's kind of hit the back burner now because he's producing, but George Pickens still feels like questionable whether he's ever going to get that really big contract from the Steelers. Like, the attitude problem is still there. You just don't see it when he's producing. It's the Antonio Brown effect of, well, as long as I'm involved in producing, I'll be happy. But as soon as I'm not, I'm your worst freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would go up and get him because I think he's a guy that would start right away, in an Arthur Smith style offense. Not to because he's big, he will block, he does all those other things. If there's ever a wide receiver that the Steelers would want to go get, that would be the guy I would definitely sign on for. But
yeah,
like I told Corey, we're really diving down the rabbit hole with how this conversation's been.
We're starting talking about draft with 6 weeks to go, so that's always a bad sign.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Steeler fans. This trio really likes to do that a lot. So you definitely got a little bit of a draft preview tonight, which wasn't the intention. But with that being said, the Steelers aren't the only team in the NFL that actually matters and plays this week.
What?
Yeah, but we've got some other good games. Came off a fun matchup of the Harbaughs earlier this week, and we've got some other good matchups. We're going to talk about a team that's, now that they're healthy, and have a healthy quarterback, they're starting to least make some noise in the league. Miami Dolphins are headed up to Green Bay. Green Bay is favored by 3 points. Will, I'll let you start with this one first.
Oh, I think, asking Miami to go in December to Green Bay just feels like a, set up for a punchline of a joke. It's not going to be as cold as it was in Kansas City, probably, but last year when they had that super cold game. But yeah, I would feel like Miami's playing well, and their playoff hopes are alive, kind of, actually. Basically, if Miami wins, and like the Steelers and Indianapolis, I think, are the teams that they're sort of chasing. If those two teams lose and Miami wins, I think they're going to feel pretty good about their playoff chances, actually, with the schedule that they have. But I don't think this is the week for them for that. Green Bay at home, I think, has played really well and has found a way to win games. And hell, they might not even cover 3 points, but I would take the Packers.
Yeah. Korey, what are your thoughts, bud?
Yeah, I don't know. Dolphins kind of seem like they're feeling themselves right now. They, like we mentioned earlier with Waddle, they haven't really been leaning on Waddle and Hill. They've been kind of spreading out a little. Tua looks pretty good. One concussion away from retiring, but he's doing the thing right now. And so I think I've picked the Packers every time they've came up in a pick 'em. And I've done pretty well with that. They've been pretty solid. But I think I'm gonna go with the Dolphins on this one. I feel like they're just playing a little better right now. I feel like they're riding a bit of a wave.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same train with you, Korey, but I still like the Packers to win. But I think this is going to be one of those really close nail biting type of games. The Dolphins are, Tua is playing remarkably better. This team, that team is playing remarkably better, but I don't think they've faced a defense like Green Bay's yet. Green Bay has been able to bring the pressure from all over the place. Miami's offensive line, is still feels like a work in progress. It feels like every time you see them play, they're always starting a backup or there's a starter that's really not that good out there. So their defense has been playing great. Xavier McKinney has been one of the best signings of the offseason. He's almost had an interception in every game he's played, had another one this past week. So I feel like he's going to kind of get Tua on a ball he shouldn't throw. So I like Green Bay, even though Jordan Love has not been super impressive this year. He's still finding ways for them to win. And really, Green Bay has been leaning on Josh Jacobs recently, and he has been really living up to the bill. Boy, he put an absolutely filthy move on someone in their game this weekend. That I was like, oh shit, did he really just do that? One of those type of moves. So I like Green Bay, but I think the Dolphins might cover. This could be, whoever gets the ball last gets a field goal off type of game. So I like Green Bay, but I like Miami to cover.
By the way, unless it's the Bears trying to kick the field goal, in which case it's not happening. I don't know if you saw the end of that game with the Green Bay, but that one was like totally embarrassing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Blocked field goal to lose the game. Anyway,
Yep. Another fun game. I kind of talked about them a little bit already, but the Chargers are headed to Atlanta. Chargers are favored by 1.5. Korey, I'll let you start off with this one.
Oh, I don't want to play the Chargers right now. I'll tell you what, if they took Zay Flowers instead of Quentin Johnston, Justin Herbert would have a completion percentage that's maybe 6 points higher than what he has right now. He's one of those quarterbacks where he's had a lot of wasted plays by his receivers throughout the last couple of weeks, but I don't think it's hard at all. I've been seeing stuff where it's like, oh, the Steelers are your 3 seed right now. They host the Chargers in the wild card. Keep me the hell away from that. That's I'm part of that. Picking the Chargers to cover.
Yeah, well, I think we were lucky to catch the Chargers when we caught them. That is for sure. That's just one of those. That's just, like I said, that feels like the last 2 years the Steelers have been catching teams at exactly the right time to overperform. But another story for another day. Yeah, I actually love the Chargers in this matchup. I'm not really sure what's going on with Atlanta. That division is sort of up for grabs. So I know there's a lot of talk that they're going to win the division and so on and so forth. But I think that they hit sort of a lull in their season So it feels like the Chargers, on the other hand, are playing really good football right now, despite the result on Monday night.
Yeah, you know it's bad when the folks of Atlanta are already talking about trading Kirk Cousins after they just got him.
Well, they signed Michael Penix, so
yeah,
they drafted Penix, so they could,
yeah,
theoretically.
but it's like, boy, we spent all this money on this quarter to bring in a quarterback. We drafted one, and boy, Jared Versus looked really good for the Chargers at times, and they could have really used that this year instead. So, the folks down in Atlanta are definitely chirping about how Kirk Cousins theoretically could be available in a trade, but we'll see how far it goes this year. But I'm with you guys. Honestly, the Chargers have looked great this year ever since we played them. They've gotten healthy. Both tackles are healthy. They're running the ball. Herbert's playing out unreal football. Like, he's only thrown, I think, one pick all year, unless he threw another one the other night, but I don't think he did. But he's finding open guys. Got to give credit to Jim Harbaugh. Really, he has really turned around that team really quick.
So, solid football coach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I hated his guts at Michigan. Don't get me wrong. But he's done a really nice job with the Chargers. So I like the Chargers.
He's definitely the less annoying Harbaugh brother. So I don't know. There should be a poll. It's a tough call, but I would say Jim is a little less annoying than John. So I hear in real life too.
Funny enough, Jim Harbaugh mentioning, the Harbaugh Bowl this past week. Jim Harbaugh has never beat John Harbaugh in the NFL yet. So it'll be interesting to see if that ever comes to a head. With them both being in the AFC, it's definitely more likely than it was in the past when they met up in the Super Bowl. But anyway, let's move on to another game. Ooh, and I wrote this down wrong, so maybe one of you guys can help me here. I had Atlanta visiting Minnesota, and I know that's wrong. Who is
Arizona?
Arizona, the other A team. Thank you. Must have just been
the A team. I love it when a plan comes together, Jeremy.
Yeah, right. Must have just been recency bias when I wrote these down. But the Cardinals are heading to Minnesota. Minnesota's favored by 3.5. I'll start off with this one. It's kind of hard to pick against Minnesota, just because they are the team that has found ways to win games this year. Even though I really like the Cardinals, I think they're way better than what I thought they were going to be this year. They're a fun team to watch. James Conner is still, producing a lot for them. At the end of the day, it just feels like Minnesota is the better team. So I'm going to go with Minnesota here, even though they're on like another kicker again. But, Hawkinson is back for them, and he looked like his old self this past week. I think it was his first or second game back. So it's just one more weapon for them. So I like the Vikings. Will, I'll throw it to you next.
You remember when I think it was Michael Vick that went in a wintertime game to Lambeau and beat the Aaron Rodgers Packers? Mm-hmm. Was that or was it Brett Favre? I can't remember. It's a long time ago, but the idea being, I feel like Arizona is the team that could pull some shocking upset in the first round of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that they're really going anywhere past that, but it feels like if they play a game when they put everything together, they're a pretty good football team. Yeah. But it just seems like last week is a perfect example. It just felt like every time they had a chance to kind of, catch up or take the lead, something happened, the fumble or pick or whatever mistake, and that's just kind of where they're at as a football team. I feel like if you're going to Minnesota right now, they're the opposite of that. They play solid defense. Quarterback hasn't been making many mistakes, and they have, they're talented. So you're not going to beat them by being inconsistent. So unless some weird stuff happens in this game, I'd expect the Vikings to win.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just can't get past Sam Darnold piloting a 10-2 Minnesota Vikings. And so, question before, is Sam Darnold a 10-2 quarterback? I don't think he is. They're 9-2 right now. I'm picking the Cardinals. They're 6-5. I think the Cardinals are a solid team, but I don't think Sam Darnold is a 10-2 quarterback. So I'm going Cardinals. I don't care what. That's my analysis.
All right. Holding everyone, holding that entire team hostage because of their quarterback. All right.
Yep. Fair. Sam Darnold we're talking about.
Yeah.
At some point, Sam Darnold is going to wake up and be like, "Oh crap, I'm Sam Darnold."
Right. And then we're gonna get to probably the game of the week, probably the biggest matchup. Philadelphia is headed into Baltimore, battle of basically across the state line there, with how close those two teams are in proximity. Battle of two ugly ass birds. Oh, Korey, I'll let you start off. Baltimore's at home; they are favored by 3.
This Baltimore, this is a great game. This is going to be a game I'm going to be watching. I don't know about y'all. This is Philly looks like it's kind of turning it on again.
Mm-hmm.
This game, Baltimore -3 isn't 3 points the home advantage, so it's basically
Pretty
calling.
much.
Yeah, that's about how I see it. It's pretty much an even game. I don't know. This one's tough. I don't know. I think Baltimore's a little bit better. I think I think they had a nice bounce back versus the Chargers because, like I said, the Chargers are a good football team in my eyes. I think these teams match up about as well as two teams kind of can, where it's these just mauling, huge O linemen. By the way, I'll just say this: did y'all see Jared Verse put Jordan Mailata on his back end?
Yeah,
Mailata is one of those bigger, stronger tackles in the NFL, and Jared Verse has put him on his rear. But moving past that, I think Baltimore wins this. I like the Eagles a lot. No outcome would surprise me. It could be a blowout either way. It could be a close game. I'm just going to go with my gut and say Baltimore.
okay. Well,
Yeah, I think Baltimore's sort of they've reached the win ugly stage of their season. Their offense, the first week of the season, looked like they were going to be an all-time offense, and they're still. You saw the stat maybe if you watched the game, top 3 in like 6 or 7 offensive categories, and they're the first team to be top 3 in all those categories for an entire season. They would be the first team to be top 3 in all those categories, like points, touchdowns, yards, per drive, like all these different things. The first team to do that since the greatest show on turf Rams of 2000, 2001. And they're also on pace for the highest yards per play average in the history of the NFL. So that it's like they're doing stuff offensively, but their offense feels like it's almost like in the doldrums a little bit now, but their defense has sort of picked up a little bit the last couple of weeks. And I'm not sure. I think Philly's, a team that will wear you down, and you got, all the stuff with Saquon Barkley and running the football. But I'm not sure they're, a whole lot more dangerous than the Chargers offense. And the Chargers offense couldn't really do anything against the Ravens defense, especially in the second half. So I feel like Philly's on a hot streak. And as Korey said, any outcome is totally plausible and believable. But I'll take Baltimore to win this game. I think, the Steelers gave them a little bit of an opening, and it feels like the Ravens are going to be trying to see that through to a division. They have their path now to the division, and they control the division as far as they're concerned. So I don't think they can afford to lose a game just because the other opponent is really good.
yeah. This is why it's the game of the week. These are two great teams that are teeing off against one another. It's the battle of running backs on their second location, really sprouting off, and Derrick Henry being, such a force for Baltimore this year. And then Saquon Barkley putting up 255 on the ground and over 300 yards of offense this past week on the Rams. The difference is he doesn't get to play the Rams defense this week. But with all that being said, I'm going Philly. It just kind of feels like they are rolling right now, and a lot of it is because of their defense. Their defense is playing remarkably better. Korey mentioned it earlier. We were talking about first round guys or these highly talented defensive players that they took in the first round, and Quinion Mitchell's playing outstanding football right now. Cooper DeJean is playing great in that safety nickel role that he's allowed to play. And that's, I think, the big difference. He is such a chess piece on defense, very much like Kyle Hamilton, is used on Baltimore. These two teams are very similar in a lot of different ways. Two mobile quarterbacks that can still throw the ball, two great running backs now. But the difference is, I think, the Eagles probably have two better starting receivers that I think they would love, Baltimore would love a guy like AJ Brown, in Baltimore. and stuff like that. Even though Rashad Bateman's played a lot better this year, he's not AJ Brown. So I like the Eagles to win in a super close game. You know, we're talking like Justin Tucker misses a field goal, but Jake Elliott doesn't type of game. You know,
Here's the thing about Philly. Here's the thing about Philly. If you took just Philly defensive players, the guys that are on their roster and practice squad, and you drafted 2 defenses from there in like a round robin format or whatever, you'd end up with no worse than an average NFL defense twice. I mean, they're so deep. They're stupid deep on a defensive line. I actually think you almost talked me into Philly for this because their offensive and defensive lines I think are just better than Baltimore's. But this the difference in terms of what Baltimore is their plan is on offense and what they can do and what their quarterback can do, I think is a little bit greater. But
yeah, I mean Jackson's and has won 2 MVPs for a reason. Absolutely.
They got to figure out how to get him running on the outside. I feel like his game has now devolved to, slow developing inside runs and then, the scrambles. And even then he's trying to go from the, inside up the field rather than the edges. And it kind of felt like he's killed the Steelers on the edge. So I don't really understand why he seems reluctant to leave the pocket and go to the edge. And they don't have as many running plays where it's a designed run for him to the outside to use his speed. So for whatever reason.
But that supposedly brings us to our supposed 5-star matchup of the week.
It's a pretty good matchup, actually. Not bad.
Yeah, no, it is. Don't get me wrong. But your Pittsburgh Steelers are traveling to the other team that plays in Ohio this week, the Cincinnati Bengals. Looking at the line here, Pittsburgh is favored by 3, which I find that be hilarious, honestly.
I thought they started off as dogs. Are they really favored by 3?
When I checked MGM lines,
I'm gonna look.
I'm gonna double check to make sure
I believe you.
I'm wrong, but
Cincy by 3 is what it looks like on this.
Now maybe I just wrote it down wrong again. This is what I get for trying to do a podcast. You're right. Cincinnati's favored by 3. Excuse me.
Ooh, because I was like, wow, I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I better take that line.
Thinking about taking Cincinnati to 3 points. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna rush over to my betting app for a second there. Yeah. Okay.
So Cincinnati's at home, favored by 3. I'll go ahead and take the bull by the horns here. I think Pittsburgh has a bounce back game. I'm not sold that Cincinnati can put together a complete game. It feels like they're close, but they just don't. I think they lead the league this year in like 1-score losses, and it just feels like they're in a rut there. It's where it's like they're super close, but just not close enough. It's not horseshoes and hand grenades. It's I've got to put 1 more point on the board more than you. I was talking to Korey about this earlier. I feel like we can really take over their offensive line. Their offensive line is not good in a lot of really across the board. There is really no one on that offensive line that I'd be like, yeah, that's a good starter in the league, honestly. I feel like they're all kind of average to below average. Ted Karras at center especially has like really shown his age this year. He's going to get replaced in the offseason. Cincinnati's defensive line outside of Trey Hendrickson is not great either. I just feel like this could be the game where the Steelers kind of win on both sides of the trenches, and I think that'll be the difference. As far as the score goes, we have actually been able to put up points this year, which is rare, considering what we've had to watch the past few years of, do we hit the 20 ceiling? And it's like this year, it's like, well, we actually tend to hit the 30 ceiling every now and then. So I'll go Pittsburgh 27, Cincinnati 20. I feel like it'll be a back and forth game, but Pittsburgh will, George Pickens will catch a ball late that he just does some crazy shit with, because he likes to play well against Cincinnati too. And I mentioned Pat Freiermuth earlier as a guy who has actually played well against this team in the past. So I'm going to call it 27-20. We tack on a score late that Cincinnati just can't quite come back from. Will, I'll go to you next because I think
no, Corey's next.
Or Corey's next. Okay, I couldn't remember who I was going at pecking order there.
Yeah, I hate to be Debbie Downer second week in a row, but I don't like basing this offense. I don't have much faith in our offense right now. I feel like here's my loose prediction for the rest of the season. I feel like I feel like this game could be ugly as well. The wheels completely fall off. Everyone hits disaster mode, and then we just wheel off a couple. Maybe beat the Chiefs. In an ugly one or something like that. Clip the Eagles or Ravens, and then just kind of make it work. Go down to that last week versus the Bengals. Figure it out. But I feel like I don't know. I don't like this week at all. I feel like this offense is really hard to keep up with, and I don't think we're equipped to do it. I'm gonna say 31-14 Bengals, but it's not that ugly in game. That's what I'm gonna say. It doesn't feel that bad, but it gets bad by the end. That's my prediction. Don't feel good about this one either.
Did you say 31 or 41? What was your
31.
Okay.
It's still bad, but
Oh, well, what are your thoughts?
I think Joe Burrow is going to torch this defense. To me, I think it's going to be a come to Jesus game for the defense. They're trending the pressure that they have. The Steelers have, their pressure numbers, pressuring the quarterback on the pass rush, have just been getting worse and worse and worse as time's gone on. And it doesn't matter who the offensive line is they're facing, really. They were so dominating early in the year, and my working theory at the moment is that it requires so much energy to play that way every week, especially when your offense is up and down, that they've just sort of hit a wall a little bit. Maybe they'll get jacked up again in the postseason, or maybe they'll get jacked up again when the season's on the line later. But this has there's too much in the back of your mind feeling that they could lose this game and still be okay. We could lose this game and still make it. And I think if you operate like that and you operate on emotion so much to win, then if you don't have all that stuff working for you perfectly and you have some doubts in the back of your mind, it doesn't work out as well. So that's the first problem. Now, can the Steelers offense move the football against Cincinnati? Absolutely. I would expect, the yardage and time of possession numbers will be respectable in this game, but I think Cincinnati will put up more points. They're built to score points, and as I said previously, they have the skill players to do that. And the thing about Joe Burrow is, even if your offensive line is inferior in the matchups across the board, he's still a guy that can find that little bit of space in the pocket or move around or run forward or do whatever he has to. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks, and he's not 5, right? So I think that's a real problem. I'm banging the over in this game. It's 47 points. I'd be shocked if this game is under 47. I'd be really surprised. Funny that Korey said 31. I felt 31 is the number as well. So I think it's 31 for Cincinnati. I couldn't quite put my finger on how many points I think the Steelers will score. But that thing you were saying, Jeremy, last week about how when they got behind, they finally changed their plan a little bit and attacked some. So let's make it a fairly close game, a one-score game, make it 31-27. But I just feel like I think this is going to be bad. Has Joe Burrow, has he lost to the Steelers as a starting quarterback? I gotta have to look that up.
We went in there week 1 like 2 or 3 years ago, and
oh yeah, that's right, we did
embarrass them in a really shitty played game.
Yeah, so that early. Well, I know those week 1 games are like really hard to use as a measurement for what you're going to be. But
yeah,
I just feel like Cincinnati is not dead yet. They know they're not dead yet. Their record is worse than what they've put on the field, really. And I feel like the Steelers' record is a little bit better than what they put on the field. So I just feel like it's a turning point. It's bad, though. I mean, it basically, losing this game to Cincinnati really puts their playoff chances. It takes a big hit if they lose this game. So I'm hopeful that I'm wrong about this, but it just makes me think. Just the matchup, as Korey said. I don't know if Steelers defense is equipped to stop Joe Burrow the way that they have stopped some other good offenses this year.
Yeah, I guess I just fall back to that Cincinnati's defense isn't that good either. And I know the Bengals are built to score points and they're built to score it fast. That's definitely a thing. So I definitely feel like the game plan is going to be run, control the clock, score, actually convert and score, not settle for field goals. God damn it, Boswell. I know you're really good, but come on, man. I don't know. I just feel like the Steelers kind of already just came out of that wake up game, that classic trap game that they fell prey to. They've got the long week, so they're getting a few extra days rest. I feel like they'll be well rested. I mentioned earlier, sounds like Alex Highsmith is going to practice this week, so could just be one. If Tomlin said if his participation rate is where they want it to be, he's probably going to play. So that's just one more defensive player that they have to kind of be on the lookout for.
Yep.
But
by the way, the Bengals have coming off more of a rest than the Steelers. By the way, they were on the bye, so
true.
They got 2 weeks off. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, but
I don't know. I don't want to. I'd like you to stay happy, Jeremy. I don't want to ruin your
hope is a
mellow.
dangerous thing. Okay, as they say it, but I'll just leave it at that. I guess I'm just hopeful that they took their punch in the mouth and they'll come out maybe not completely swinging, but not pulling punches like Mike Tyson and all that. But well, thank you all for tuning into another episode here at the SteelerFear.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Kohlman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by the best host that money can buy, but we don't have. Korey Karbowsky, Korey39, and Wil Masisak, Bradshaw to Ben. Well, hard to believe it, but it's the end of the college football season, so we're going to be talking a lot more draft here sooner than later, fellas. But
playoffs.
Yeah,
we got to talk about those Division II playoffs next week.
Yeah, right. So, all right, Steeler fans, thanks for tuning in, and here we go. Hopefully, we get a win in Cincinnati.
Here we go, Steelers.